Good evening, everybody. And if you're just tuning in, you are listening live to the Angel Rock. I'm your host, Lorilei Potvin. A little bit about the show and myself. If you're returning and you've been a fan of the show, excuse me, and supported our network, thank you so much. We really, really appreciate you. If you're new here, welcome. You're also listening to the show on 107.7 in New Orleans, Louisiana. Feel free to come and join us over on the UFO Paranormal Radio. Wait, UFO Radio my mouth's not working. Sorry, guys. UFO Paranormal Radio YouTube channel. I keep an eye on the chat and I like to involve you guys in the comments and questions. Now, I can see the chat. We're streaming on, I believe it's 5 different pages on Facebook. We're streaming on Twitch. We are also obviously streaming to, we have 2 even YouTube channels. I believe the other one is called UFO Gods and Extraterrestrials. But I can't answer you. So the best place to go over, like I said, is to the UFO Paranormal Radio YouTube channel. I'll see your chat. I will try and answer your questions, your comments, anything that you might, I'd like to involve you guys in part of the show when you're here. So, and we had a great show last week. We've got great guests coming for you this week. They're a little bit late, but I'm going to back up a bit. Like I said, my name is Lorilei Potvin. I'm a Canadian psychic medium. I'm also a crystal Reiki energy healer, Akashic Records practitioner, truth seeker, medical intuitive, spiritual teacher, and mentor. And I'm also a registered nurse. And my show, The Angel Rock, I say always covers all aspects of the supernatural. So that could include the paranormal, like the show we just had on previously that just ended a few minutes ago, actually. It's called the Paranormal Host Chat. Sometimes it's ghosts, UFOs, aliens. I talk about angels. I also talk about the power of the mind, teach you how to access your intuitive abilities, energy work, all kinds of things. And then sometimes I talk about truth seeking, and that's where we're going tonight. Last week, I had a friend of mine as well as she is a phenomenal guest. She is a natural, I should say, no prescription based medical practice. She is an actual physician for 50 years. Her name is Dr. Rima Laibow. I've never had so many people send me messages watching the show while we were live as well as after. And I had her co host and very, very good friend, Ralph Fucetola, booked for tonight. He is a retired lawyer from New Jersey. And I'm going to read his bio so I don't screw it up. But when he graduated, was from Rutgers University. And I want to make sure I get the title right. Basically, he was known as the vitamin doctor because what his practice of law was, and he has won quite a few monumental cases. We're going to talk about all their work, their podcast. I'm going to make sure, like I said, I get that title right with Ralph. So he graduated as he's graduated specializing in nutrient and alternative law. Very knowledgeable man, very intelligent, very pleasant. Dr. Rima and Ralph have a podcast on People for People Radio out of Scotland. I believe their show starts from Tuesday, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it's called Dr. Rima Laibow Presents The Unmasked Crusaders with Dr. Rima Laibow and Ralph Fucetola. They have all kinds of guests, and the beautiful thing about that network, not that we're censored on this network, but on the network out of Scotland, People for People, is completely uncensored. So, because I believe they don't use some of the Silicon Valley places to post shows, you can pretty well talk about whatever you want. And of course, I want to give a huge shout out to Joe Montaldo, who is the owner of UPRN. He is also the producer for all our shows. As I always say, he makes my job easy. I just get to sit and talk to you guys, and he does all the hard work for us. And I really appreciate that because he has a day job. He runs a successful, very busy construction business. And I don't know how he does what he does. So I'm so appreciative. He never censors us. But we do give him a heads up when when I have guests on like I'm going to have tonight. Because some of the streaming platforms don't necessarily like what we talk about. And we're going to see where this conversation is going to go tonight. Hey, Zach, man, how are you? I'm so glad to have you here. Just waiting to hear from Dr. Rima. I believe she'll be popping in probably in the next 10-15 minutes, as well as her co-host and good friend. Hi, Carol. Welcome from Sacramento, California. I know who you are. Welcome. And Ralph will be joining us too. And I knew when I had asked them for the show, because I don't know how these two people do the work that they do. They are so incredibly busy, and women don't usually really reveal their ages, but Dr. Rima did actually on my show last week. She does not look it. She said she's 77 years old. She is more busy probably than 10 of us put together. I don't know how she does what she does. And on the side, I think she talked about, she does improv. We kind of bonded over our dogs. She's got the most beautiful black German shepherds, and she has a puppy that's about 10 weeks old, and I have a black German shepherd. So if you're a regular follower of this show, you have met Emmy, or Ember is her full name, Ember Lee, because somehow she always seems to know when the end of the show is. I don't end the show the same way all the time, but she usually pops up. She's ginormous, and she thinks she's a lap dog. So, and then actually, even I was chatting a little bit with Dr. Rima off and on. You message each other when getting ready for the show. She actually does a lot of creative things that I do as well. So, like I said, we're going to have a fun conversation tonight. If you have any questions, because I know Zach, I believe yeah, Zach, you were here last week, and so was Carol. Feel free to post them in the chat. And I'm just making sure if I get a ding, I may disappear from the screen for a sec. I'm still here. I want to keep an eye on Skype. It usually has a different ding-a-ling. Oh, Ralph is here. There you go. So guys, give me a sec. I am going to send him the link, and I apologize for the awkwardness for a second here, but this will make sure that we get him connected. Good thing I looked. He's just asking me how to get on. So give me a sec, guys. I'll tell him, please click the link. Click the link and open in your browser. Sorry about this, guys. And open in your browser. So he's pretty technologically savvy. So, and then I'm going to text Joe to tell him to watch. Sorry guys for the minute here. I'll say one of my guests is connecting. Can you please add him? Add him. Sorry about this, guys, and thanks for your patience. We're going to have to do this one more time when Dr. Rima connects, but the lucky thing is, what is the link for the public to watch? Okay, I did send him that. He didn't see it, so I will give him the link again. Hang on, guys. Sometimes I'm on the wrong one here. Hang on. Sorry, guys, I can't do 10 things at once while I'm thinking. Give me a sec here. Okay, just let me tell Ralph. I'll say, my producer is here ready to add you. You guys are hearing all my thoughts out loud.
Good. Is Dr. Rima with us?
Not yet. You are here. I was just typing to you. So Ralph, welcome. I was just chit-chatting because we started a little bit later. So you didn't really miss much. You missed about 5 minutes. Thank you, Joe. Thank you. So this is what we did with Dr. Rima last week, because she came on. She'll be here probably about 9:30, 9:35 our time. Which is Eastern, and welcome. And so what we did, because it's just me, I was typing out loud saying, okay, Joe is ready to add you. I don't want to have dead airspace.
No, I thought you talk while you type, of course.
Yeah, well, I didn't want to have dead airspace. And so regular viewers, Zach is in the chat already. We've got Carol, who was here last week. I was telling them all about your background. So this is the amazing gentleman who I've gotten to know, Ralph Fucetola. I was telling them about your background. You had graduated from Rutgers, and your field you were specializing in. I didn't get into all the amazing work you have done, but you are known. Share this, if I remember correctly, the vitamin lawyer. Is that what they were calling you?
Exactly. vitaminlawyer.com was the site when I was in practice. I've been retired from practicing law, although I seem to be practicing all sorts of things.
Yeah.
But 36 years of practicing law was enough. That was enough of a practice. My current website is vitaminconsultancy.com, and I
Yeah.
basically work with natural product companies to make sure that their standard operating procedures and structures are properly integrated and meet the standards they have to meet in order to be a food business. And then
Okay.
along with that, I'm president of the Institute for Health Research, which is a recognized NGO, and
Right.
that can be reached at inhere.org, INHERE,
Oh,
inhere.org. The
okay.
institute, of which Dr. Rima is also one of the trustees,
Okay.
publishes a journal, and I think folks might find the articles in the journal very interesting. Some of the
While I
greats
was
in our health world have published articles in that journal. People like Gary Null
okay.
and similar.
Well, while I was talking, I was just about to get into is me. I was telling them about your podcast, telling them, type of guests that you do. I was literally had just said, and it didn't give me the Skype beep. I heard something and I went, I need to check that just in case it was you, and it was you. But I was saying that the amount of work that you two do blows my mind, because the two of you are more busier, I think, than 10 people put together.
At
And that's
times,
separately. Never mind what you do together. It's
yes.
incredible. So, what made you decide? I got to ask you, and I was so glad I got you to, alone for a few minutes, because you and I haven't gotten to know each other quite as well yet as Dr. Rima. But what made you go into this field? Because I think it's brilliant. And
All right. Let's
share.
see. I've written my memoirs, so let me see if I can remember how this all happened. It was so long ago, a half a century ago and more. Now, my wife and I
Oh,
met.
my.
My dear wife Kathy, who passed on 12 weeks ago,
I'm so
met
sorry.
in 1968 at a conservative political gathering. Uh, we hit it off. Uh, by 69, we were going steady
Right?
and getting in trouble as members of
Okay.
Young Americans for Freedom.
Yes.
1969 was a famous year politically. It was the year in which the hard left threw out the libertarian left from the Students for Democratic Society, SDS. And in the same summer, Young Americans for Freedom threw out its libertarians, myself, my wife, and a number of other folks who eventually formed the Libertarian Party
Okay.
and became involved in pro health freedom, pro economic freedom activities. I was one of the members of the National Committee to Re-Legalize Gold, which was Ron Paul's great initial victory when he got Americans the right to own gold bullion and gold bullion coins
Okay.
after 30-something years of unconstitutional prohibition.
Right.
So I was very much deeply involved in libertarian political philosophy. In that particular bridging of the right and the left that the libertarian movement represents.
Okay.
Uh, I remember I went from there into the health freedom world really in a very natural way because
Okay.
my wife and I became among the first test subjects of Dirk Pearson and Sandy Shaw, the famous
Okay.
authors of the life extension books. Back in the late 60s, early 70s, they were working with vitamin research products out in the West Coast, and we would get a snail mail. There was no internet. We would get a snail mail message from them saying, buy a bottle of pure selenium and start taking it 10 drops a day. If you take
Right.
12, you will overdose, that sort of thing.
Right.
And so we were among the early experimenters in
Right.
dietary nutrition, and that simply morphed into the part of my career, which is the vitamin lawyer. I spent 15 years before that happened, really,
Right.
practicing ordinary law in Northeast New Jersey, which is not an
Okay.
ordinary place to practice law. And
It's not. No.
No, it's not. One can tell stories, but then I would probably have to shoot myself. But you can read my memoirs, the political and cultural memoirs of an irrelevant person, and you can get that on Lulu. And I tell some stories, and
I'm still here. I'm sending you the link that you're asking for, so I'm listening to you.
yeah, I would love to let the folks on Telegram know how they can connect. So there's a way to do. Yep, I can hear you. All right, let me continue telling you folks out there.
Static.
Yeah, I hear that. That's okay. It's so I can continue telling you folks.
I'm not sure if I have to message Joe.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, give me a sec. I'm trying to send this to you on Skype as you're talking. Go ahead, Ralph. Sorry about that.
Fantastic. All right. So, so as I said, as mentioned, I graduated from Rutgers College in New Brunswick, New Jersey, with a BA and honors in American Studies, and then I graduated from Rutgers Law School in Newark a few years later, and started practicing law and became involved in a number of other issues that you are interested in. For example, my wife Kathy was an experiencer. She and my son and I all had what we now call unidentified aerial phenomenon experiences.
Yes. Dr. Rima is here, by the way, so keep talking.
Dr. Rima is here. And of course, that's one of the things that connected us to Dr. Rima, since she was one of the first psychiatrists on this planet to take experiencers seriously. So that's sort of another side to what I've been up to. And over these past 40 years, I've also been an ordained minister and have handled hundreds and hundreds of weddings and other services. Yes, and that has always been a great joy and a great pleasure. I've always worked with people on the edges, though. So I've done weddings in which the bride and groom jumped over crossed broomsticks, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, but you know what? That's the beautiful thing, that when you can be open-minded, and I always say it's not my job to judge. Everybody needs somebody to, like, whatever their belief system is, to have that union or the right to burial with, say, dignity or whatever it may be. And I'm actually really glad that you brought up when you started this. And again, I extend my deepest condolences to you about your dear wife, Kathy. I'm so sorry. And
she was an extraordinary woman. We had 48 years together, 50 years together, actually, 48 married. And she has gone on to what she needs to do. I think maybe she didn't want to stick around for what's likely to happen in the next couple of years. But she finished a very interesting little booklet entitled Parallel Timeline Syndrome. And she also, and which I published on Lulu for her. We were working on it when she took ill, and I finished it after she passed on. And I also brought together all of the essays she had written and the novels she had almost completed and that sort of thing, and put that together into a collected works book. And all that stuff can be found at tinyurl.com/Founders Legacy. That's plural, Founders Legacy.
Okay, so that's her.
That's a link to some of her videos and to the books and a few other things she put together. So
I just sent Dr. Rima by accident. She's here now. Dr. Rima, I apologize. Ralph was asking me for where can I share this in your Telegram channel. I sent you the YouTube instead of the link, but we got here.
We got here. Yes, and there are actually 3 of us here. One of us is partly grown, one of us is fully grown, and then there's me. So I've got my dogs are talking to one another.
Oh, good. My girl's in here too, because Ralph, last week, I forgot what your oldest's name. What's your oldest one's name?
My oldest one's name is Timberwolf, and my little one's name is White Wolf.
I knew they had wolf, and thank you so much, because it was Timberwolf last week, right? He had enough. He said, like, you've been talking too long. You need to come play. And everybody loved it, Ralph.
And if I can find my puppy.
We've got a little bit of static here, guys. I don't know why, but I know Joe's probably listening. I want to let you guys know too, while Ralph was speaking, so we have Zachman, who's a regular supporter of the show, Carol, who I know through an independent group that we chat, independent podcasters and sort of journalists. She's from California. We've got Lorraine, that is from Sydney. Zachman said, my deepest condolences, Ralph, to you about the loss of Kathy. And again, I'm so deeply sorry. We've got Belle Pratt here from Australia as well. We're getting people popping in all over, guys.
Great.
So, where should we start? Ralph was I got a few minutes to, I hadn't gotten a chance to know Ralph quite as well as I've got to know some things about you. So it was nice to talk to Ralph. I know he's posting probably in Telegram.
What I'm doing, I'm posting on the worldwide demonstration on open source truth. Folks, if you're not on telegram.org, you must join now.
Yes.
Telegram.org, it's uncensored. You know, when I was thrown off of Facebook, when Dr. Rima and I were frozen on YouTube, you know, we were really happy to find Telegram. When you join Telegram, search for Open Source Truth as one word, Open Source Truth, and join that one. And of course, the worldwide demonstrations, world space-wide, and you'll have a whole bunch of them. There is a worldwide demonstration chat for your country, your province, your city. And we all need to be there on July 24th. We need to stop the rush to insanity that we're all experiencing around us. And we need to do that right away. That's really all I can say.
I think it would be important to talk about the things that we can do to stop the worldwide insanity.
I love it. Yep.
And so the first thing we need to do is simply say, don't you dare. And there are many ways to do that. One of them is to be at the demonstration on the 24th near you. Be there. Put yourself as a demonstration of your refusal. Put it there with other people. Make sure that we have thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people saying, oh no, you can shovel your propaganda crap at me, but I know what's real. I know what's going on. My face is uncovered. My air is not laden with graphene oxide, and I'm not putting graphene oxide and nanobacter and toxoplasmosis and foreign synthetic mRNA in my or DNA with the Johnson & Johnson or AstraZeneca in my body or my child's body. Oh no, that's one thing you can do. The second thing you can do is share information. If you go to opensourcetruth.com or Open Source Truth on Telegram, you will find a wealth of information from doctors, from lawyers, from sociologists, from politicians, from nurses, from people who are saying, this I know, and this I see, and it doesn't match the official narrative, because the official narrative, whether it comes from the politicians or whether it comes from the bought and paid for celebrities who are not expert in anything except being celebrities, or whether it comes from the government officials like the incredibly evil Anthony Fauci, or whether it comes from Biden or Harris or your state governor, that's all nonsense. That's all propaganda. The truth is that the shots are deadly. The shots are filled with graphene oxide. They are connected, they are designed to connect you to the signals from this ubiquitous, deadly 5G system. And now they're putting graphene oxide and they're talking about it in flu shots. Oh, isn't that dandy? So now you're going to become part of the Internet of Things. If that's okay with you, if you want to give up your DNA and your human neurons and not have graphene oxide and have graphene oxide wrap around them and literally bring information in and send information out to control you and control your very thoughts, check out the patents. If that's okay with you, then take the damn shot. But then again, you'll be dead in a couple of years and we'll be rid of you. That's harsh.
That is you.
I
We need
want
to
to stop
stop
you for
that
1
point.
sec, guys.
That is a very serious
You're gonna want
thing.
to know this. You're gonna know this. Gaz is here from People for People Radio, so I want to let you
Awesome.
know because he's
Gaz.
I
our
love
producer.
Gaz.
Sorry, guys, carry on.
Now, let me tell you, peopleforpeople.ning.com is the radio station where the Dr. Rima Truth Reports airs weekly. Ralph and I are co-hosts. It should be called the Dr. Rima and Counsel Ralph Truth Reports, but that's a little unhandy. So it's the Dr. Rima Truth Reports, and we have amazing guests. This week coming, we have Michael Zazio. Next week, we have Jew Murphy Masters from Australia. Folks, the person who makes that all possible is Gaz, and he is our engineer from Scotland. Periodically, Gaz, who is a splendid musician, relieves our hearts and lifts our souls by having a program of live music, which God knows we all need. And thank you, Gaz, for that as much as for your engineering. Gaz is a wonderful gift to us all. So
He's amazing, and I'm going to be there tomorrow because Karen Holton, who has been on my show before, she is visiting family. So I'm very deeply honored. She's asked me to host her show while she's away. So I'm going tomorrow and the
lovely. Well, Gaz and Vanessa make it very, very easy.
Yeah.
So what I was saying is, in addition, no, it's all relevant. In addition to taking the information in, and I'll tell you something, it's overwhelming and it's horrible. I deal with a lot of awful information, and sometimes I just get overwhelmed, and that's why we need music, and we need art, and we need poetry, and we need love. We need love. I am so grateful for Ralph's friendship and your friendship, Lorilei, and my doggies who are endlessly needing love and giving love.
I was talking before you guys came on, and actually Ralph joined me probably only about 7 minutes before you. It would have been faster if I hadn't sent you the wrong link. I sent you the YouTube link, but I was telling people how we went over a little bit what we talked about last week. I told them about your podcast, where to find it. I was telling them about Ralph because they had met Ralph, and I said we kind of bonded over our dogs of all things. We have the same kind of breed of dog. Then we have so much else in common, I found out.
Yes, we have a great deal in common.
Yes.
The next thing that you need to do is share that stuff, because there are a lot of people who are on the edge or who are looking for confirmation. We will have, if we haven't posted it yet, it will be up either later today or early tomorrow, an article on open source truth from the pharmaceutical industry, from a website that I read because you have to know what the other side is doing.
Absolutely.
And this website has an article on the behavioral interventions that work to undermine and eliminate vaccine hesitancy. In other words, you don't want to take this garbage into your body, and they want you to. So they have social psychologists and behavioral psychologists and so on studying how to bend your will and damage your determination. And what they found, one of the big problems is that there's something about people that allows them to only take in the information that confirms what they already believe. So there are people, lots of people, who kind of believe that the shots, the jabs aren't really good things, and they need information. You can give it to them. Use social media. Use the Telegram and the Facebook, if you're still on Facebook, which of course we're not. Use Twitter, use these other sources to put out the science, to put out the reality, to put out the fact that tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people are dying directly from the shots. The court in Portugal, the High Court in Portugal, decided to look at the actual COVID deaths. This is 2 weeks or 10 days ago. And they found, this article is on Open Source Truth, they found that it wasn't 17,000 people in the little country of Portugal who had died from COVID. It was 193 who could in any way be said to have died from COVID. About a year ago, the CDC, the Center for Disease Creation, as I call it, in the United States, which goes with the World Holocaust Organization and the Fraud and Death Administration, the Center for Disease Creation in the United States said, yeah, it's true, you caught us. We don't have 600,000 people dead. We don't have 1 million people dead. Nah, what really, it was less than 5,000 people that probably actually died from COVID. And if you think about it, it could be nobody, because COVID doesn't exist. Graphene oxide exists and spike protein exists, but COVID, not so much. So it could be that nobody has died from the virus, and those people have died from having their lungs blown out on a ventilator. They've died from not having ivermectin. They've died from not having hydroxychloroquine, vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, all the other things that actually work, dare I say it. Various silver products are well known through scientific literature to support the normal system of the normal function of the immune system, for saying which Ralph and I are being sued by the FDA, the Fraud and Death Administration, and federal court. We
talked about that last week because that's important. What I wanted to add very quickly, there is a doctor, I'm trying to find the article because I'm going to send it to Ralph. He's probably seen it because, guys, if you need information, somebody's already put in the chat. Telegram and your open source truth is one of the best I found on Telegram, as well as your website, because it's always updated with the latest information. But what I got last hour from Quebec, somebody sent me in Canada here, they are putting into, I don't know if it's law, I haven't been able to read, I didn't have much time between both shows, but apparently when the next lockdown comes out, if you don't have a vaccine, it sounds like you very well will be confined to your house. You will not be allowed to leave.
Fauci, that's the man after whom I have named the new word for medical tyranny, Faucism. Mm-hmm. Fauci said, and we've posted this article on Open Source Truth, that as soon as the vaccines, they're not vaccines, you know that, the jabs, as soon as the jabs were approved, given full FDA approval, then he was in favor of, quote, local mandates, which means the states in the United States would mandate these vaccines. Now, we have now the threat of federally dispatched people coming to our homes in those zip codes where uptake is low of the jab. And I have purchased, and I advise everybody in this situation to purchase signs, large signs that say no trespassing private property. And I will add, because I couldn't find any that say this, no health information will be revealed. Mm-hmm. If they come onto my property, they're committing a state and actually, I believe, a federal offense. If they seek information about my health that I do not wish to give them, we have laws called HIPAA health.
You know what I got sent though from California? There's two things I'm going to share. There is a document that's out there. I have the video. I'll send it to you guys after. That somebody leaked this document. Now again, is it true or not? We got to question everything. But it goes by systematically. Ignore the trespassing, no trespassing, ignore all that you just suggested, how to clear the building. And then somebody from California, their friend works in medical records, the letter they got said that they're breaking all laws with HIPAA. They're going after all people's medical information to find out. Now this is just in California, and I can't verify, it's just what was sent to me, that they are going after people's medical records.
I've seen the same. And that is why the merciful God did something that most of us are not happy most of the time that this God did, which is create lawyers.
Good ones like your very good friend Ralph that we're so lucky to have here this evening.
We're so lucky to have Ralph. There are a few good apples. The rest of them are, you know, there are a few good doctors too. The rest of them are flawless wonders. I like to think so. That's a matter of opinion. Not everybody would agree. But the point is that if you come onto my property, which is posted without my permission, you are trespassing. And if you seek information or obtain information that violates my rights, then we have a legal course of action. And my response is, don't you dare. Don't you dare. Now, if we passively bow our heads and bend our knee and say, well, it's really too big for little me, I can't really handle all of this, I guess they know what they're doing, then we are participating in the development of tyranny and evil, and we will pay for it literally with our lives or our humanity as we become transhumanized and enslaved. Back in 2004, when my husband and I closed our practice of drug-free medicine because we saw this coming, because
we talked about that last
where we were going, everybody thought we were crazy.
2004.
But 2004.
Yes.
Everybody thought we were crazy. If you used the word genocide, it made you look crazy. We talked about the New World Order. We talked about the global agenda. We talked about all that stuff, and people went, ooh, where's the exit? Right? Now it turns out that, like Cassandra, I was telling the absolute truth that nobody wanted to hear. Well, it's here.
We have a question.
And that's where I stopped you earlier, because we've made an extraordinary claim, and the claim I think is justified. And that claim is that we face a possibility of a significant portion of the human species literally dying off over the next 2 years, 4 years. And we're talking not about a couple of 100 million people a year who normally die, but billions of people dying, 20 times as many as could be expected, maybe even more than that. And that situation is one that demands, you know, extraordinary attention. My first thought is, I pray we are wrong.
I pray we are wrong with you.
Right. My second thought is that the frontline doctors, including Dr. Rima and a number of others, have basically looked at the evidence and have come to that conclusion. And maybe that's a conclusion where we should trust the doctors, the good doctors, not the bureaucratic.
I have a question, Ralph. I didn't want to interject here, but I think it's a good question, and I'm going to direct it to you, but I know Dr. Rima will have stuff to add to this, and I think it's important. So Carol is in California, and she said, but is the justice systems / police going to protect the law that is being ignored now by this present corrupt government? And if a person calls the police to rid the trespassers from their property, will they come?
That's a really, really, really good question. And I think if I could preempt you, Ralph, for 1 second, and then you
then I'll go on to you.
My answer is that depends case by case on what's going on in the families of, in the hearts of, and in the minds of those law enforcement personnel. If they are, in fact, vaccine skeptics, or if they have somebody who's been harmed by these jabs, or if they understand what's going on, then they could protect us. If not, then they could oppress us. And I think it will be a truly mixed bag. So one of the things that you can do to protect yourself is share this information, because it disseminates. Policemen have social media lives. their wives or daughters or husbands or sons or fathers and mothers have social media lives. You can share this information and you may very well be saving your own life.
Did you guys see that the Canadian government has announced today that they've opened a vaccine compensation for anybody that's suffered a severe injury or death? They've never done this before. Justin pre going across the country because he promised an election in the spring, right? So I think this is the carrot he's dangling. So I thought this was very strange.
Wow.
That you're admitting that people are injured, but they were really minimizing the amount that were injured. I'm going to send you the link, Ralph. It might have to be after the show, but I will send it to you and to Dr. Rima
today. The FDA announced that they are putting a warning on the Johnson & Johnson jab, which says, look, it could cause, like heart attack or pericarditis or myocarditis, and you could die from it, but it's really rare. Oh, wait, that was last week. No, today it was, it could cause Guillain-Barré, which is paralysis. Actually, Guillain-Barré is a fancy name for polio. It could cause polio, transverse myelitis, but it's pretty rare. Now, in 1976, I believe it was, when 53 people were killed by the swine flu vaccine, 0 people by swine flu. Nobody died from swine flu. It was as much a nonsense as this coronavirus is. 53 people died, and the program was stopped. They died after they had contracted Guillain-Barré. Now we're up to how many people in the United States on the VAERS system, which captures 1%? Is it... Are we up to 9,000 people in the United States? Are we up to something like 11 or 12,000 people in Europe, and that captures 1% of the cases? These are deaths associated with, and they're still saying, well, it's pretty rare, because they're lying through their teeth.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
But the thing is, and like I said to you, actually, I was on the phone all day yesterday. I didn't plan this, but it was a day of revelation for many things. And I actually went to our fellow friend, Timothy Masters, who will be on here. Actually, he was going to be on tonight, and it was my scheduling snafu. So I'm so glad to have you guys here tonight, where you were rightfully supposed to be. And Timothy will be on next week, but he had a podcast this morning. So I had an hour's sleep, got up at 5 and got there at 6. And he had a bunch of people over from different states, I believe it is, in Australia, different areas, and talking about what they were seeing and witnessing. And it was very refreshing to hear people talk about this versus what we're even seeing in some of the independent media. And I just got permission that I can share this with people. So whomever is here or hearing this that I share things with, I'll definitely share them. I'll share them with Dr. Ralph, Dr. Rima. But the whole thing is, I think where people are at, and especially, again, I speak from Canada because where I live, I was saying 80%. I think it's 90% of people here that are asleep. They keep saying, no, the government will never lie to us. This would be all over the news if this was going on. And if you people would just do what you're told, this would have been over a long time ago, without realizing a lot of our laws have been changed permanently to cover all of these changes. And then somebody brought up in one of the podcasts, look at 9/11. Those security changes around the world are supposed to be temporary, as I understand it. The whole world has changed. They've never gone away. Income tax. I could go on and on.
When does a government ever rescind taxes, restrictions, regulations, or limitations? Ever. When the government falls, that's when those things fall away. By the way, in Australia, 4.5% of the population has been jabbed.
That's what I've heard.
That's why these severe lockdowns and restrictions and limitations and destructive regulations to punish the people, to get them to submit. And God love them, they're saying, no way. Oh, doggy.
Told you she's coming up. She's saying, hello, this is Emmy. No, that's true. And then one of the girls, I forget what part of Australia, she actually said, I haven't really been affected by lockdowns. I really just didn't pay attention. She said, locked down for 5 days, and we just went to the park, and then another 5 days. Here in Canada, we couldn't even buy anything but what groceries we could get and a few pharmaceuticals. Baby items were deemed unessential.
Unbelievable. I have to go get something out of my puppy's mouth.
Oh,
Keep
yes, go do it.
Go right ahead. I'll be listening. All right. But no, the situation, and there are announcements now going on in, was it Denmark or the Netherlands, where the Prime Minister apologized for reducing the controls because there's been an uptick in the number of hospitalizations. Well, maybe they should check and see if those people are the vaccinated who are being hospitalized.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that seems to me to be what's going on. We're seeing the statistics. There have been more vaccine reported deaths in the United States since January 1st than for decades before that combined. It's one set of figures I saw was as follows. In 2009, there was the famous swine flu pandemic, which never happened, of course, and there was the swine flu vaccine, which killed 53. Let me see, was that? I think it was that. Maybe it was a little later. Maybe it was the second one. But 45 million people got the vaccine, and 53 people died, and they stopped the vaccine.
It was 1976.
76. 1 out of 900,000 people. More recently, of course, we have what's happened this year, 2021, at least 6,000 deaths in the United States, 150 or 60 million jabs. That's 1 in 30,000. 1 in 30,000 compared to 1 in 900,000. I presume that's at least a factor of 27 greater than the other. So we have a situation which is clearly out of hand. The public health authority, if they were behaving the way they did just a couple of decades ago, with these so-called vaccines, instead they're doubling down. They're doubling down. Senator Pan, the infamous Dr. Pan, who, by the way, received a Mengele Award, I think, 5 years ago from the National Solutions Foundation. Dr. Pan says that people who don't get their jabs, those people are terrorists, domestic terrorists. Yes, they are natural health supremacists.
Well, today, the head of the Health and Human Services Administration said that life should be very hard for people who do not get the jabs. They should not be able to travel. They should not be able to shop. They should not be able to leave their homes. This is the same.
It's like Jews in Nazi Germany.
What?
It's like Jews in Nazi Germany.
It's exactly like Jews. I wrote an article in about 2007 called "We Are All the New Jews" about this. And you know what? People said to me, "Oh my God, you're so negative." And I said, "No, I'm so accurate." And they said, "Well, I don't want to think about this. That's so horrible. And that would never happen." But the handwriting has been on the wall. Why? Not because I'm psychic. No, but because if you read the documents of the monsters who are the globalists, this is precisely what they've been saying they want to do.
They always tell us. I had actually heard the analogy that it's almost perceived that if they tell us, it's up to the human being that is innocent and has no idea to figure out where they put it. But if they've put it out there, they've warned us, so they believe their karma is cleared. This was something I had seen as an analogy. Why
I'm not sure whether they do it because they think it's funny,
probably.
or they do it because they have some rules. But I've been observing, Ralph can verify this. I've been observing since we started talking in 2004, Ralph, that these monsters, the elites, always tell us what they're going to do in advance. They tell us in books and novels and movies, and they tell us in television shows and card games. And if we don't catch it and stop it, then I guess we're fair game. But the point is, the official organizations have been telling us too. For instance, the World Holocaust Organization and the United Nations, God help us all, the United Nations is not your friend, told us that in the event of a level 4 pandemic, all governance worldwide would devolve to the World Health Organization. Now, a level 4 pandemic was never defined. Anybody could say, you know what? I woke up today and I decided we have a level 4 pandemic. And virtually every country in the world signed this agreement. It wasn't a treaty, so it didn't have to be ratified by the Congresses and parliaments. It was just an agreement. The United States, of course, and Canada and Australia and all the other countries in the world signed the agreement. When was this signed? It was signed, if I recall, and Ralph, if I have it wrong, please correct me. It was signed June 4th, 2007. So they have been planning this to take over the governance of the world when they had themselves a nice juicy pandemic. And if you remember, in 2009, the swine flu, which was nothing, was also declared to be a level 4 pandemic.
Never mind, Fauci promised us vaccine in 2017, didn't he? He promised us this would be coming.
Absolutely.
Would be a pandemic. Mm-hmm.
But the swine flu vaccine was supposed to be laced with a sterilizant. And when Ralph and I told the American populace that the mandatory vaccination program, which was announced on September 15th, 2009, by then head of Health and Human Services, Secretary Kathleen Sebelius, and she specified what that sterilizing agent would be. So we found the patents held by the United States government, and we told people, yeah, you can go get yourself and your children vaccinated, but you'll be sterilized if you do. And so in 11 days, 3.5 million people said no by clicking a button like the button that we have now for enforcement that we'll talk about. 3.5 million people each sent 28 letters out when they clicked that button saying no. And 11 days later, Kathleen Sebelius said, okay, I guess we won't do that. And the program died instead of the people dying.
Things have changed then, and the authorities feel far more empowered to do whatever they want. So it's a different situation, and it's one which requires much stronger public response. Specifically, it requires people to back up the worldwide demonstrations. The first worldwide demonstration in March, 50 countries, 90 cities. The second day, 100 countries, 190 cities. The third worldwide demonstration needs to be every country on Earth and every major city on Earth. We'll not quite reach that, but we're going to get close. The authorities, while they suppress mass media acknowledgement of the worldwide demonstrations, are quite aware of what's going on.
But there's another button too. And do we now have the international one or only the U.S. one so far?
No, we only have the U.S. one so far.
Okay. Within a day or two, there will be two of these buttons.
Okay.
When you go to the website, Ralph will give it to you in a moment. When you go to the website and you enter your name and your address and you click submit,
Yep.
you will be sending 81 letters to the perpetrators who have been convicted by a tribunal of conscience, which deliberated carefully and soberly and looked at the genocidal deeds of Bill Gates, the Queen of England, the vaccine manufacturers, the Prime Minister of Canada, prime ministers and presidents around the world, the other people like Fauci and so on, Ford, and they found them guilty of genocide in 3 categories. In the COVID category, in the 5G pulsed microwave category, and in the aspartame category. Aspartame produces the same symptoms that we now label as COVID. And so they convicted them and they issued cease and desist orders. Now, that's a tribunal of conscience. And then the question is, how does that get enforced?
Yes.
And you and you and you and you become the enforcer by sending 81 letters to all of the convicted people. You say, we know what you have done, and we do not accept what you have done. We hold you guilty. And in fact, you are a perpetrator. You are a genocidalist committing crimes against humanity. You become a marshal of conscience. Now, if 3 people do that, or 6 or 200, you might just as well stay home and read a good book. But if millions of people do it, as happened in the United States in 2009 with swine flu, they know the jig is up and they will back off and they will back away. The people who have been injected will die unless and until we can find some antidote for what's been injected into them. The people that they have contaminated through contagion will die. The rest of us will not. And then we get to reorganize society, which is why we have created the Un-Jabberwocky group on Telegram for people who are unjabbed and who wish to connect with each other, to congregate with each other. For instance, next Saturday there will be another Un-Jabberwocky cafe in Tucson where we'll have a gourmet meal and where we'll have live entertainment, and we will be in the company in a social environment of other unjabbed people. The speaker who had been asked to come is jabbed, so she's been asked not to come. Yes. And you know, we have to take on the responsibility of reorganizing and protecting our own lives. Not violently, because we are outgunned. They have more guns than we do. They have high energy weapons. They have denial of space weapons. We don't. So we have to do this without weapons. I prefer that anyway. And if we don't do this, we are either dead or we are enslaved and transhumanized. That's what we're up against.
And I agree with you because, you know what, and I've had people ask me, why are there doctors and nurses that can't see this? And what I explained, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, both of you, on this, is that I don't have a family doctor. Out of a city of over 100,000 people, 75,000 people are without a family doctor. And this isn't just my city. This is all throughout, by the way. So there's socialized medicine for you right there, folks. And it's not free, by the way. We pay through the nose for it. But my point, what I'm mentioning, is that when I went to university to get my nursing degree, the first 2 years were completely focused on what the normal or neurotypical was, as well as health prevention and health promotion. Dr. Jonas Salk, who was Canadian, was lauded as a hero for curing polio. All kinds of the propaganda we were fed. I believed it. Why would I question it? I was 17 years old when I started university. What happened was, though, I have a son that was born with severe autism. My son was not a vaccine child that had the light switch flicked, if you will, for the autism gene. But he had meningitis at 4 weeks. I believe that's what did it. He almost died. But I was seeing all these, and I know Dr. and we talked about this last week, but very quickly for people that weren't here, I was seeing all these parents of these beautiful little children normally developing, starting to get speech, parallel play, everything age developmentally appropriate. They would have their MMR, mumps, measles, rubella, and I think there's one more you had added when I brought this up, Dr. Rima, that was in there. You'd added, I think.
Well, there are children for whom it's very clearly the MMR. There are children for whom it's the DTaP.
Yeah. You're right. Some of them were 12 months, but this is what I was seeing at the time. My son's 23, and literally, this child would have this shot, and a lot of them, it was like within an hour, 8 hours, it was like the whole power switch was turned off. Eye contact gone, speech gone, stimming, everything we see with autism, and these parents are crying out, it has to be the shot. They were told over and over and over and over across the world that they were crazy. It wasn't. That opened my eyes. But then what happened was my eldest, he'll be 26 in 2 days, was 12, and here in Ontario, they get the treatments or hepatitis B vaccine. When my son had it, he was so ill, his pediatrician was going to hospitalize, and I knew him very well. I had worked with him in the NICU, and I said, what are we going to do that I can't do at home for him being a nurse? So he had everything. I know you know what jaundice is. Some people may not, except the yellow skin. That's how ill he was. I have a letter from that pediatrician that my eldest son and my youngest, I believe he included myself, should never, ever receive another vaccine again in our lives. So there you go. But the problem I'm saying is I had an impetus to open my eyes. That opened Pandora's box for me. And I realized everything I had been taught, everything I had been told was a lie. But most people don't have something, I'm finding, with nurses that are pushing this, doctors that are pushing this. And you can tell if you're in the medical profession, because I do have to see a physician once a month for prescriptions. And I talked to him about this back in January. I knew within 20 seconds, I had no clue what he was talking about.
But au contraire, allow me to
absolutely share. I want to hear what you have to say.
Right?
I want to hear what you have to say, both of you.
Ralph, would you give the website to which people can go and become marshals of conscience?
Exactly. It's marshalsofconscience.com. Marshalsofconscience.com will get you there. You'll click on to what's called an action item. I believe it's a little orange button. And that will take you to a page where you'll be able to fill in your information and become a marshal of conscience. It automatically sends an e-blast out to, for Americans, it sends it out to their members of Congress, the vice president, the person who's living in the White House, and 81 international leaders. For people who are not Americans, the system is a little glitched. I'm working on setting up a separate action item for them, so there'll be 2 buttons, and depending on whether you're a U.S. citizen or not, you'll choose which button you need, and it'll send out the proper thing.
Or a U.S. resident. You don't have to be a citizen or resident.
As long as you have a U.S. zip code, actually.
All I want to tell you quickly before you have your response, Dr. Rima, I put out a banner everywhere on social media, my business as well as personal profiles. I'm going to be adding that link. I didn't get
Marshals of Conscience.
I will be adding it as well, so people will see.
MARSHALLS, Marshals of Conscience. Now, let's talk about doctors and nurses, shall we?
Yes, please.
Let's start with the fact that in the United States, 62% of the pediatricians in the United States do not vaccinate themselves or their children. They do vaccinate your children.
Yes.
They do vaccinate your children to the tune of more than half their income. We do not have socialized medicine. More than half their income coming from the vaccination of your children. And they don't vaccinate themselves or their own children. And their nurses don't vaccinate themselves or their own children. So what would you say about people who are injecting? What would you say about people who are injecting poison knowingly, but protecting their own families and their own bodies from that poison, but taking a good deal of money from insurers, from patients, and from the pharmaceutical companies? For example, if a pediatrician has more than a certain number of a certain percentage of his or her patients fully vaccinated, Merck, the manufacturer of the MMR and a great many other of these poisonous injections, Merck will give the doctor an annual gift. And that annual gift can be something like $3,000 per patient in their panel. And a doctor can have 3,000, 6,000 patients. You know, it's not so unlikely. And so the drug company says, thank you, doctor, and gives the doctor a premium for the number of patients that they have fully vaccinated. Now, let's say they have 6,000 patients in their panel and only 5,400 are fully vaccinated. Well, the drug companies are truly, truly generous, and so they will give the premium, let's say $3,000 for the entire 6,000 number of patients. So they're very, very generous. Now, that's one fact. Another fact is that something like 60% of the healthcare givers in the United States, that's people who give care to the elderly, people who work in hospitals, people who have private practices, licensed healthcare professionals are refusing the jab. They're giving the jab, they're advising the jab, they're telling you that you need the jab. They're good little boys and girls, little puppets, little apparatchiks, and they're doing what they're told, but they themselves are saying, oh, thank you, no. They themselves and their families are saying, I think we'll pass on that, thank you. And they're not putting that poison in their bodies. Again, I ask you, what does that say about the moral compass, about the decency, about the trustworthiness, about the reliability, or about the competence of these people? And the fact that it's most of the people in that profession just says how shameful the profession is. I am a licensed physician. I will do nothing to another human being that will harm them unless there is no option and I explain to them what the harm might be.
Otherwise,
I
I want to ask you guys about this. There's been somebody had sent me an article about this, and I talked to a close friend I work on a lot of this stuff with in the US. People are starting to get phone calls here in Canada and in our province from the COVID jab clinics saying you need to come back and get your COVID jab because you were accidentally given a saline injection.
Right.
Who's getting these saline injections? And as you well know, any healthcare professional, what the heck is a saline doing in with a vaccine? I can understand.
I'll tell you what it's doing there. I'll tell you very clearly what it's doing there. They want to reduce the number of adverse events because they're on a public relations tear. I'm going to walk over to the wall and turn on my light because it's getting.
I have a question for you. I hope you can hear this. And Debbie has asked, Debbie A. Anderson, Vibrational Energy. She said, is there a possibility that a frequency could eliminate the virus?
there certainly is a possibility. There are possibilities that we have to deal with.
But you'd have to have a virus to do that.
I was thinking that too. That's
the
why
whole point of our ebook that's being published, the spike protein ebook, is that we don't know.
Yeah, I knew you
That's
were going to
the
The spike protein exists. We don't know. It's very odd. It really appears as if there is no protein. There is no virus. The patents are on the spike protein. There are thousands of patents. Many of them. Over a year ago, I reported that Duke University and the National Institutes of Health through Fauci, and Fauci himself personally, had patented this deadly brew, this gain of function monstrosity. And before that patent was issued, 2 years before, there was a patent for the vaccine for this disease that didn't.
You know what I'd love for you to go, Dr. Rima, because we have a comment from Michael Bowman. He's going, of course, frequencies kill cancer cells. So he's believing there's a frequency to kill the coronavirus.
We would never use that terminology. It would get immediate trouble with the FDA.
Well, the other thing I was going to do, they've never isolated the whole what causes this. Am I right about this?
Yeah, right. We don't even know if there is such a virus.
Exactly.
And you can't kill a virus because it's not alive. Let's start that. Let's start with that. Yeah. The virus is a collection of information, basically. Yeah. It is not a living thing.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as a killed virus vaccine because they're not alive. You can't kill something that's not alive. Mm-hmm. So we do not have any solid information that such a virus exists and that such a virus enters the body and that such a virus adheres to the cells, penetrates the cells, replicates in the cell, and causes disease. What we do have is solid evidence that the spike protein does all of that. And the spike protein is manufactured once you receive the jab, because that's what the jab does. It either tells your DNA, that's the AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson jabs, or it tells your cells, that's the Moderna and Pfizer-BioNTech jabs. It tells either your cells or your DNA to keep making spike protein forever. And then your body reacts to the spike protein and starts trying to attack it forever. And the spike protein is built to look an awful lot like your nervous system, your heart, your lungs, your uterus if you're a woman, your testicles if you're a man. And so the immune system, obedient soldier that it is, just goes out and attacks whatever the instruction says to attack, which is you.
Right.
And I understand it knocks out a lot of your natural immunity.
Weaponized autoimmune disease.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Somebody put a good comment, Michelle Pratt from Australia. She's a regular supporter of my show. And actually, I love what she put. I know we can't, but she says, can we please release a frequency to wake people up? If it was possible, we would have done it.
This is it. That's the frequency of your voice, Lorilei, the frequency of your voice, Ralph, the frequency of my voice, and the information that the frequency is carrying. That's the frequency to wake people up. And we're not the only ones. Dr. Judy Mikovits is doing this, and Dr. Sherry Tenpenny, and David Martin.
All the frontline doctors in the lawsuit they've started.
All of the frontline doctors and lawyers like Jim Turner and the lawyer in Germany, Fulmich. All of these people are producing the frequency that can wake people up.
Dr. Carrie Madej.
Dr. Carrie Madej. There are so many of us now.
Yeah. I want to give you a compliment because somebody posted in here as well. I try to involve our people we've got so much conversation going on there, just like last week, and I appreciate this from everybody. They wanted to let you know when you said you would never harm somebody, or if God forbid that was the only option, you would explain everything and every risk that was involved. And she said, 3 cheers times 1,000 for you, doctor. Hip, hip, hooray. That was from Carol.
Thank you. Let me just interject. I've practiced medicine for 51 years, and I have never written a prescription for a pharmaceutical.
Yeah.
I'm a psychiatrist. I have never used a psychoactive medication except one time when I had a patient who needed to withdraw, and I wrote a prescription to help her cut down the amount she was taking and withdraw. And I got a call. I was sitting at my desk. It's a funny story. I was sitting at my desk, and the phone rang, and the receptionist wasn't there, so I answered it. And the voice at the other end, which I did not recognize, said, and I quote, "What the bleep is this?"
Yeah.
And I said, "I don't know. You'll have to give me a little more information."
I'm not a mind reader.
He said, because I had no idea what the topic was. And he said, "This is the pharmacist at Greenleaf Pharmacy in the town where my office was.
Yeah.
And I have a prescription from you for 10 Xanax. I said, "Yes." And he said, "This is a controlled substance.
Yeah.
And the prescription form that you're using is 3 generations out of date. Prescriptions haven't been used for 15 years. And he said, "And it's number 0001. I said, "Yes, the first one I ever
People
wrote."
might not understand what that means. We do.
And he said, "Well, why don't you have the current prescriptions?" I said, "Because I don't write any prescriptions. I didn't know there were any new forms. I'm terribly sorry. What would you like me to do about it?"
And notice you only ordered 10 rather than 60 or 30 or a PRN. It was what was needed.
That's the one prescription for a pharmaceutical I wrote in my entire 51-year career. So I'm not quite pure.
No, yes, you are. Well, I was talking to Ralph too. Because I didn't realize where his area of practice was, and I looked him up and did some of my homework. And I was asking him how he got involved. Now, I mean, you don't hear that area of practice in law very often. What do you do? So that's where we were going with the conversation. But I would love, so we know about the marshals of conscience. What else can people do? Like, there's a lot of commenting here. People are so concerned about what Biden is planning on doing, supposedly with the military.
Right.
People feeling very helpless, afraid.
Avoid people who have received the jabs.
Avoid receiving jabs. So.
No, but they're worried about being forced to take it, is what they're talking about. If these, they come into your house.
Self-isolate. They're not going to come into people's houses easily. We still have some restrictions on that. Self-isolation will help to some degree. Claiming to be immune. I had the disease a year ago. I'm immune. Why should I take?
You know what I heard today, Ralph? So the guy that was talking about this military document, he said exactly what you did. Say, I have been vaccinated. Because he was talking about if you've ever had honey, he was saying these were his words, you've been vaccinated. You probably have received a vaccine in the past. He was even talking about being outside in the sunshine, fresh air, and grounding, but you're not really lying.
It was pretty chaotic when they vaccinated me, and I don't think there's any records.
Yeah. That's what he said to say. I don't know. I mean, you're not really lying.
Well, they put something in my arm.
Saline. I don't know. I wouldn't bring that up. But
I'm very interested in this saline thing. I would love to have more information about that. I'm sure that some people did get saline to reduce the number of people who had anaphylactic reactions, fainted, died immediately after the shot.
Because after the graphene oxide came out with the Spanish scientists, that in English, the fifth column, and discovering about graphene oxide. And so I know, if I understand what they used for their first, I want to say investigation, it was Pfizer. So they were explaining in what I watched that each vial breaks down into 6 different jabs. So somebody was theorizing that I was talking to, and it didn't make sense to me though to have that saline there for big wigs, for all our celebrities that show up, but they're never going to go with the common people to receive their jab. So there has to be another reason for that. I'm surmising, like what you're thinking, but why would you call them back though? That's my thing though, right?
Why did you call them what?
Why would they call these people back though? Like, I think it's a great idea what you've had. Like, was this to minimize reactions? But they're getting
Because
called back.
now they are, I believe they believe that they are in charge of the narrative so firmly that it doesn't matter how many people die, how many people start to get very sick. The agenda is to kill a minimum of 90% of the population of the planet. Let me say that again. The articulated, explicit, documented agenda is to eliminate, that means kill, through starvation, through any means that they choose to use, 90% or more of the world's current population. Let me remind you that in the lab work that was done during the 30 years that they were trying to develop mRNA vaccines unsuccessfully, every time they would inject the lab animals, and they were monkeys, and they were rats, and they were mice, and they were ferrets, and they were rabbits, and they were lots of different kinds of animals. Every time they injected a group of animals with a candidate mRNA jab, most of the animals were okay immediately. Most of the animals didn't die. So they had a large percentage of the animals still around in their cages after they were jabbed. Then, when they introduced the animals to either the same virus that the mRNA vaccine was based on, or to a related virus, the animals died. How many of the animals died?
100%.
Every single last one.
Yep.
That's what 100%. Now, they're talking about booster shots. The CDC and FDA in the United States issued a joint statement saying nobody needs a booster shot. No, no, no. But Pfizer is now in discussion with the FDA for approval for its booster shot.
And Canada.
Go ahead.
And in Canada too. We've seen it. It's been out in the mainstream media. Yeah.
So this, now, what are they going to put in the booster shot? That's very interesting. But in the fall, when people start getting colds, 15% of which are caused by the coronavirus, du jour, when they're exposed to a related protein, because all coronaviruses have spike proteins, not this particular genetically engineered, gain of function, deadly bioweapon spike proteins, but they have spike proteins. That's why they're called coronaviruses. They have a crown of proteins around them. Okay, what happens when people start being exposed who have been jabbed? 100% of the animals died, and what you'll hear is, oh my God, it's a new variant.
Yeah, I'm waiting for
the Delta variant. And so we need a new vaccine, or maybe the old one. How about a booster?
How about?
This is what I like. I think people, like somebody had wrote in the channel, and it was concerned for all of us that this is very dangerous to discuss on YouTube. And I said, no worries. I said, my producer is well aware of this, and he doesn't censor us. He actually left our discussion up last week on this channel. So I let, so far, knock on wood, So I will send the link out again, and we're not over yet. And mind you, it goes by so fast when I have you two on, and I hope we can do this regularly because I have never had so much discussion and comments. Dr. Rima's been on, and Ralph, you're here tonight too to add to it. I want to let you know Zach Mann, who's a great supporter of our network, as well as everything that I do on this show too, or I mean on the network. He lives in Arizona, and his comment was, I should make Dr. Rima my primary doctor because he's the only one that's not jabbed in his family. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I don't think I've ever had a chance to ask you this. What I am seeing, which is so crazy, and we're experiencing this with our own family, certain members, is Zach says he's the only one unjabbed. What we're finding is those that are jabbed, it's literally like out of a creepy horror movie. He's not saying that, I am. Where it's, did you get the jab? Did you get the jab? What are you getting the jab? Did you get your appointment? Did you go? They just don't stop. It's like on a record, like on a repetitive record. I don't understand. It's like it's their cognitive thought process almost, or it's like that hive mind. Like just get the shot, get the shot, get the shot, get the shot. Have you been seeing
It's the big lie technique. You know, it simply is the big lie technique. It's
Let me
all of the techniques of control.
Let me offer a slightly different thought.
I'd love to hear it.
It's a speculation. I do not have evidence to support what I'm supposing might be happening. Supposing. And I am not saying that this is happening yet because I don't know. But we do have advanced telecommunications. Verizon and T-Mobile and others advertise that they use 5G telecommunications already. What if the people who are jabbed are already being mind controlled with the telecommunications that we know is being used for that and can be used for that? What if they are already transhumanized?
Yeah,
and no longer fully human, and they are saying obediently, like every horror science fiction movie that ever happened, they are obediently saying, get the ball job, get ball job, get ball job, get ball job. What if that were true? What if the meshing between these two technologies were already operative? Then you might see this kind of behavior, might you not?
I agree with you because we've been, with the Internet of Things, the way they're talking about this. Heck, we didn't get into the patents because I don't think most people realize. Actually, would you guys address that for me, please? Because I don't think we talked about that last week, and I don't think a lot of people are aware of this, about the patent. Like that people
35 or 40 years ago, people were coming to me as a psychiatrist who would listen to people rather than just pathologize them and give them drugs to put them in a chemical straitjacket. And they were saying, my thoughts are being controlled. My mind is being controlled. I am being attacked. I am being burned by energy weapons. Look at this. This happened last night when I was in bed, and so on. And some of them were in prisons, and some of them were in psychiatric institutions. And it's really hard to have people take you seriously when you say something unusual and you're already in a psychiatric institution. It's not good for credibility. But I am a person who listens and who collects information, and I was seeing patterns in what they were telling me. Some of them, yes, were psychotic, but you could be psychotic and have things happen to you that are a little unusual or a lot unusual. And some of them were not psychotic. And some of them had documentation. And some of them had really uncomfortable things to say about what had happened to them sexually and so on and so on. And so I came to the conclusion privately, and did nothing about it at that time, that there was some kind of a mind control program. There was some sort of experimental technology. Okay, fast forward to 1991, and I go to Russia just after perestroika with General Stubblebine, and the chief scientist of what had been the Leningrad and then was now the St. Petersburg Technical Institute, which is their MIT,
Okay.
was our colleague and our guide.
Mm-hmm.
And he takes us to his laboratories, and we see many interesting things. And then he comes to visit us as our guest.
Mm-hmm.
And he comes several times, and it's very interesting. And then he comes one time, and something has changed. He's now creepy and aggressive, and he bugs our house. And I wanted, of course, to rip out the listening devices, but General Bert, who retired as the head of intelligence and security for the Army, said, no, it's much more fun this way. We can put in information. And I said, I don't want to put in information. He said, shh, no, we'll do it this way. So anyway, this guy, the chief scientist, is there, and he this is one of his visits, and he's come, and he's chasing us around with a pair of glasses that he wants us to put on with really thick temples. And he says, we'll make you psychic. And General Bert said, I'm already psychic enough, thank you. And I said, I'm quite psychic. I don't need any glasses to make you psychic, because we knew what it was. It was a miniaturized device designed to capture the EEG of the subject. How did we know that? Because we knew somebody who had been in Russia at another point a little earlier, and they had the electrodes placed on their head. Look, we have new technology, is wonderful. You see. And what they did was read his brain waves and then capture them. He could be controlled anywhere in the world. So we knew that technology was real. In fact, General Bert and I worked very hard to keep that technology out of the hands of the CIA in 1991, 92, and 93, and we failed. The CIA obtained that technology through the Menninger Foundation in Topeka, Kansas, by the way. Interesting. So we knew in 91, 2, and 3 that the CIA and everything that comes from that had some of the most advanced technology in the world at that point for mind reading and mind control. Mm-hmm. Now, this was factual, documented information that we just happened to have. Most people didn't. And we certainly didn't have the resources to do anything about it, but we knew about it. Fast forward again. TIs, targeted individuals, start coming to me and saying, can you help me? I have chips in my body, and they've been documented. They're real. Occasionally they were removed, but sometimes they were in locations where they couldn't be removed. And at least one doctor lost her license. One surgeon lost her license because she was removing those that could be removed. And the medical board said, if you keep doing that, we'll take away your license and you won't be a surgeon any longer. And she's not. So this was pretty dangerous. And then I started looking at the modern patents. You can do a web search, mind control patents. Just go online and start looking at what the United States government has patented.
And Google too. I've seen some of those.
Absolutely. Now, they're not, Ralph will tell you that once a patent is granted, it is a documentation that the technology works. Maybe you want to say something about that, Ralph, because I'm not an attorney.
Yes, our court cases have made it really clear. The FDA, the FCC, the Federal Trade Commission, all of those alphabet agencies are obligated to respect decisions of the Patent and Trademark Office, and more specifically, what are called the claims in a patent. The claims are that very special language that only patent attorneys know how to write, and that specifies the exact protected areas of intellectual property. Those claims are deemed substantiated. That means when you get your new drug, you patent your new drug, you go to the FDA, and the FDA has to say, oh, well, the patent office has said that your claims are substantiated, therefore we have to accept that. And that means that in effect, there's no real independent FDA review. And the people who
but
are...
they can't patent human beings, is what I'm saying, right? That's part of
Say
it.
it again.
They can't patent human beings, but when it's related to the jab, that's where I was going with this.
All right.
They can patent.
I don't know. That's the question.
We don't know yet. Well, I've been saying for more than a decade, if GMOs, genetically modified organisms, genes get woven into your DNA, does that make you property of the patent owner? Ralph and I have been talking about this for quite some time, and it's not clear. So if the mRNA is woven back into your DNA through reverse transcriptase, which is not a rare process at all, 80% of the human genome got there by this process of reverse transcriptase. If this goes, or if the AstraZeneca or Johnson & Johnson jabs put new DNA that's patented into your DNA, are you now the property of these companies, and can they dispose of you because they don't want you anymore? If I have a horse and the horse is my property and I don't want the horse anymore, I can have the horse killed, right? I could do that with my horse because I own the horse. Okay.
If you're considered not human or transhumanism, because this is completely new, right?
Right. So Ralph, the patents are deemed to be factual, right?
Right.
So if you go online and you look up mind control patents, you see what is factual, what is already in the public domain. They're not going to patent the really special stuff, only the ordinary stuff. And that stuff is enough to give you the heebie-jeebies and give you nightmares for the rest of your life. But this stuff is being used, and there is an interface, a very, very real interface between technology, that is to say the telecommunications technology, and things like graphene oxide, which fits around your nerves and then receives information and puts information out into your nerves and into the waiting receivers. Smart Dust has been doing this for decades. It's not novel. It's novel to us because we don't deal in nightmares and evil. But it's not novel.
What I'm going to do, we have about 3 minutes left, and I want you guys to have enough time to tell everybody everything we talked about, how to get a hold of you and stuff. Do you have anything quick you want to add? And please promise me you both come back on here, because everybody's loving you guys, like the comments. We've got so many great questions. We're just running out of time because we've got a lot of excellent questions. People are asking me about somebody just asked about the lab injecting human DNA into monkey embryos, so I'm going to save that one for next time you come back. Somebody wanted to know about what is actually schizophrenia. We had great questions. And what I've asked people, and I will do this next time you guys come on, I'm going to ask them to send them to me. So I will send them to you, and you'll have an idea. We can kind of guide the conversation that way. How does that sound?
I want to say that Ralph is, I've always said, a national treasure, but now I see him as a world treasure. He has been fighting for health and freedom for decades, and he has been doing it courageously and successfully. He's a brilliant student of history and the law, and he is a great treasure, and I am honored to be his colleague. And I just want everybody to know how important he is to the struggle for health freedom. That is the control of your body. You own your body. The state doesn't, the corporation doesn't. And if they try to own it, don't you dare is the only answer.
And it's a hashtag that you're using.
Hashtag don't you dare.
Mm-hmm. Don't you dare. Did you want to add a last few words before we let people know where to find you, Ralph, at all? And I'm so glad you came on tonight, too.
Certainly on my end, this has been an interesting program. I've put together some of the information we need to make that second international button, but I'm going to have to contact the folks in Salsa to make a change.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll be up tomorrow sometime.
Mm-hmm.
Team ebook, and I want to let everyone know that if you are go on to Open Source Truth right now, you will see that we posted the spike protein ebook Telegram. Our Telegram people get first dabs at it, and if you're on the email list, you'll get an email very soon, next day or so, which will also give you access to it. But if you're not on the list, I don't know how you're going to get it.
marshallsofconscience.com. And thank you, Lorilei, for having us. It's just wonderful having such an intelligent conversation that's so vigorous and interesting. Thank you.
Thank you. Don't forget about your podcast tomorrow.
The doggy one.
Your baby's
It's
just
time
about
to take
done
care of the
there. I
doggy.
know to find you tomorrow for your podcast.
Right.
Bye-bye.
So I'll let Ralph tell them then.
All
Ralph,
right.
you guys, when you're on.
Yes, we are on People for People. That's FOR, People for People.
I think it might have cut out, Ralph. Okay, go ahead. You might have to repeat it. Cut out there for a second. I apologize.
All right. We're still on here? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. It's peopleforpeople.ning.com. Go to People for People and join right there, or go to opensourcetruth.com and you'll see on the right side there's a little piece on the podcasts. They are on Tuesdays, 6 to 8 p.m. East Coast time. Thank you, Lorilei. It's been a pleasure to meet you again. And
it has,
talk to
and
you
I
soon.
didn't get a chance to say thank you to Dr. Rima because I didn't know she was going to log off. I'll message her afterward. But if you're talking to her, please thank her.
Need attention.
It's been an excellent conversation. Have a wonderful evening. I will see you guys. May see you tomorrow because I'll be over on People for People. Like I said, I'm guest hosting tomorrow. I will be in touch with you very soon because we've got to have you guys back on. Okay. Much love and light. Have a wonderful evening. And I want to thank everybody here. Yes, it's People for. Sorry, guys. I know Joe was working on it. We had a little bit of audio issues. So their website is People, where the broadcast is. Actually, the editor was in, and the owner, the producer, sorry, and the owner was in the chat earlier, but it was 3 a.m. because they broadcast out of Scotland. So where you can find their podcast is 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on People for FOR People. It's all one word. .NING. So the N's are in Nancy. And I'll start over because let me start over. People for People, all one word, all small letters, N as in Nancy, N as in Nancy, G.com. Now, what you need to do is register with that website because it'll give you access to the live streams. It's free. They don't spam you. And that way you're able to see the chats and questions and what have you. I want to thank all of you here tonight for all the intelligent conversation, the questions you've asked. I am deeply grateful for you being here. I will post the relink on most of my social media where the banner is. I will also update the Marshals of Conscience, I believe it was. Yeah, marshallsofconscience.com as well. I'll update that on the link. And I will see you guys next Monday. I may be on here sooner because we're just deciding when we're going to be doing the Centralist. We have a panel host chat and we talk politics, usually Friday night, but our wonderful Joe was talking about maybe possibly Wednesday, but I usually post that also on most social media. So you'll have the links and when to join and what time if you so choose to join us. I'll be back next Monday with the Angel Rock, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Sorry, my brain's not working. Too much talking. With Jimothy Masters from Australia. A good friend of mine I have met working with on the tribunal that we were on with Dr. Rima and Ralph. I met many wonderful people there, and I'm so grateful for that. And he's a film documentarian. He's actually from the UK. He puts out a daily news source from the Australian, I believe he's in New South Wales, he said. And he is another truther. And I don't always do truth with my channel, just so you know that. I have a wide variety of topics that I cover. And if there's anything you guys maybe want me to cover or guests you want me to have on, feel free to reach out to me on social media. I have if you want to book a reading with me, I do mentoring services. I also do crystal Reiki and energy healing. You can find me on facebook.com/the Angel Rock. I also have two Facebook groups, Paranormal University for all things paranormal, and then the Angel Rocker Tribe for many of the things like the power of the mind, teaching you how to access your spirit guides, how to open your third eye, balance your chakras, power of the mind, things like that. I send you guys all so much love and light. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you next week. Please remember to share. I'll probably still be here unless Joe's in the background. I usually have